Hey guys, welcome back to the Outriders podcast, official podcast of Digital and Creative Media Works, the show where each week we take something from pop culture, try to break it down to better understand it. My name is David.
Oh, hi, I'm Ben.
Laura.
We've changed the structure of the show since you've
welcome,
last been
Laura.
on,
It's
Laura.
completely
Welcome.
different.
Okay, that confused me.
Welcome
Yeah.
back. It's the Wild Wild West out here. I am so bright in the camera. I don't know if you could. There's like a sunbeam
You're
right
a
on.
very white boy.
Well, half of me is.
You really actually... Welcome back, audio
That's
people.
not
That's
staying in.
probably being cut out.
This week, continuing our fight month, and if you want to vote on different topics that you want us to
Fight
cover,
night. Oh,
the
wait.
best place to do that is patreon.com/GZM. Sorry? No,
It's
you were
fight
doing
night.
You were doing a goof, and I interrupted
Monday,
you
fight night.
by trying to sell my shit. It's
Friday, and
This
it's
goes
a
up on
month long.
Yeah, it goes up on a Friday. The video goes up on a Saturday. It couldn't be further away from Monday.
It could be on like a Thursday.
Yeah, I
think
didn't-
Thursday is further away.
I didn't do a maths degree. And this week, we are talking about the fight scene between Will and Captain Jack Sparrow
Captain Jack.
in Pirates of the Caribbean for
Sparrow.
numerous reasons. The first of which, I think, is because it's extremely very interesting the way they put it together.
I think it's fun.
It's fun.
I
It's
like
very good.
pirates.
I'm going to probably shatter a lot of illusions today about how that fight scene was made, but we brought Laura on because Laura is a big fan of that film in particular.
I've watched that film and probably the first three Pirates films multiple times.
Uh-huh. Which is the
So-
best, do you think?
First one.
It's the
Right?
first. It was a trick question.
Right, sure.
Yeah, no. I
No,
No,
what
I
do
mean,
you...
the first one is good.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, it's just good.
Just
no,
good.
shut up. No, I've watched it so many times by
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
I know it inside out. It's ridiculous.
Interesting. Yeah,
How many have you seen, David?
I think I've definitely seen the first Pirates a few times, and I know I've seen the first three. But I don't know if I've seen. No, well, I know I've seen the first two. I don't know if I've seen 3, 4, or 5.
Wait,
Because
what one was the one that we saw last?
We saw number
Was that-
5.
Was that 5? There's
Yeah.
a lot of these films.
there's a lot of these films.
Yeah,
and most of them
number
are very good.
4 is the really bad one
Is
with the
that the one with-
mermaids.
Is that the one with the big vortex fight at the end? The
What?
whirlpool fight
Oh,
with the two
wo-
ships?
That's the third one.
That's super
That's
standard.
at
Like, you
World's
made
End.
that up.
one?
That's the third one. That's at World's End.
No, that's in one of them.
It's also not important that the magic in this world.
I mean, I
doesn't make
guess
sense.
like ship fight in Weird Ocean thing is describes
be
all of
anything.
them.
Yeah,
but
well,
the one
yeah.
around the whirlpool is specifically at World's End.
Right.
Interesting.
I've seen that one.
I guess the reason that I found this fight when you suggested it, I was like, whatever. But then I started to look.
But then
into
you watch it, you're like, oh, it's actually very good.
and I watched it, and then I looked into like the production, and I was like, ooh, Papa's got something to talk about.
Oh no.
'Cause it's really interesting.
I just like it as a scene and like what it does for the film, and it's
It's-
got some really good
I
writing
think
in
it's
it.
a really good example of a fight scene that actually advances characters and plot in a meaningful way that a lot of other fight scenes don't.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, we're gonna. Where is this? Where in the film is this?
Okay, so it's in the first act, isn't it? It's just before
Super
Captain
early.
Jack gets locked away, so he's just fled.
Yeah.
He's just fled the port in the docks, and he's running away, and he comes
He's running
into
away
the-
from the naval boys.
Yeah, and he comes into the blacksmith
To
and
try and get his shackles off, essentially.
yeah, to get his handcuffs
I mean,
off. and
it's
then-
essentially like the third scene of the film.
it's pretty early,
It's super
Yeah.
early.
which is good because it's your two main
Or
protagonists.
like the third chapter, quote unquote.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's the third beat of the
So
story.
he
Yeah.
comes into the port. Then there's earlier on there's stuff with
There's
Elizabeth.
stuff with Will and Elizabeth.
Yep.
where she's like she puts on her corset
and
and,
he
she
breaks
falls
the
into the
thing and just
Mhm.
she gets a proposal from Norrington and then falls into the ocean and he saves her and
Yeah.
then he gets caught.
yeah, and then this happens.
Yeah, so it's
Super early.
and the fact that it's really early is really important because it does so much like heavy lifting as far as characterization is concerned of both Will and Jack, but also like
Yeah.
tells you a lot about their capabilities without ever having to be like Jack is a feared pirate and also a lunatic. Like
Will is a nerd who
And
likes playing with swords.
Will's a dorky nerd and he can't get the girl. Instead,
Yeah.
they're like they show that instead of tell it, and I think that's a good argument for like why sometimes the argument that you should ramp up your story's intensity as far as like life and death kind of thing is sometimes wrong if you execute a scene like this where you know Jack might kill Will. We're not sure of like his moral code yet, so there's like there's like an
Yeah.
actual
Well, I think you at this point you don't know his moral code, but after this scene you do.
yeah.
'Cause
And
this he like begs Will to get out of the way.
He's like, I don't want to kill you,
please
and I
move."
don't want to use this
He's
shot.
like, please move.
I mean, and part of that is tied into the pistol, which he doesn't want to use because that's his shot that's meant for Barbossa.
Literal
it's
Chekhov's gun.
it's planting a
Yeah.
gun for later. But my reading of that scene was always that he just didn't want to waste the bullet.
Well,
he didn't
no,
care
he
about
said
killing
this
them all.
shot is not meant for you, and
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what not wasting that shot.
Well,
but-
no, but he specifically doesn't want to waste that shot because
No, I know,
it's-
but that's the only shot he has. So what I'm saying is, rather than not wanting to kill Will, he just super wants to use that shot to kill Barbosa.
yeah, I mean that's another way to
I
like
think
Which I
because
think
you
makes,
can't really. That's the one of the things about Jack Sparrow is you have no idea what he really wants or
Mhm.
because in later films there's a lot of like back and forth about whether or not he's a good man.
Yeah, that was a
because-
weird thing that they were like, we should investigate that. I guess.
But like at the core, he's just a dirty pirate who mostly is out for himself, but he ends up helping them because
yeah, he's just like a cool rock star anti-hero
He's-
character.
yeah.
Well, he's also not the main character. Not
Of
in
this-
this
no,
of this
film.
picture?
no.
Who's
The
the
main
main
characters
character in
are
this film?
Will and
It's
Elizabeth.
Will and Elizabeth, main
Yeah.
character. Like this film is before he became
So-
the main character.
So the bad
Ah, okay.
Pirates films are the ones with Jack as the main
Ah,
character.
okay.
Like super early in this script, he was like super behind. He was like a super minor character. Like he was more
Yeah.
just not even the audience surrogate. He was
So,
just kind of
'cause-
there. But then
Because
Johnny
Jack,
Depp happened.
like, he doesn't make a very good main character. He's
It's
Yeah.
almost like the problem with casting someone like Johnny Depp in a role like that is that
he just kind of like choose
Yeah,
the script.
yeah, he just
Choose
chooses
the scenery,
he
just
chooses
starts
scenery,
chewing.
and Johnny Depp is so unpredictable and also beat his wife. We can't gloss over that. And, and J.K. Rowling still hasn't said anything about it. It's not important, but they should have fired him and just got that very good handsome boy back to play that character.
Right.
Anyway, no, but he just sits there and chooses scenery in the later films because what they forgot is that when you're writing Captain Jack Sparrow, you have to have a straight man to make him interesting. Because he's only interesting if he's set against someone that is dynamically straight. Like, Will is a dynamically straight character because his arc is simple. He goes from, like, a kind of nerdy guy that likes swords to an activated pirate who has this
Yeah.
drive, and it's the drive that he has to change things that is what attracts Elizabeth. And unfortunately, in this film, it does fall victim to that trope.
Well,
Well,
even-
the
even-
prize, but
dude. You said nerdy guy who likes swords, and I immediately think of Ben.
Oh shit, it's fine.
it's
Um,
I was trying to move past
The
it. But, yeah.
interesting thing is that the fifth film actually goes back to him being a side character, and
Yeah.
Ah,
it
interesting.
replaces Will and Elizabeth
with
with
like
another pair of lovers.
yeah,
um,
one of them is the daughter. Wait, no, one of them is the son of Will.
Was
and-
Orlando
yeah.
Bloom busy? Like
He's in
could
the
he just-
film, but
No,
he was
he's
busy, yeah.
he's got like a really minor.
Yeah,
part.
it's it's the son
But,
of
like,
Will
Yeah, it's Will's son and this.
and girl.
That
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
I think that's smart because again, Johnny Depp only has like such a short life on his
And he
like
beats his
acting
wife.
career, and he also beat his wife, and he does a lot of drugs. But like I've heard anecdotally that he's actually like kind of like he's a nice guy, but it doesn't excuse the things that he's done,
Like beating his
No.
wife.
like beating his wife.
All right.
Like but,
Yeah.
but to me, what's interesting about this scene in particular is for two characters that play such a pivotal role in these films, the way that they use so this whole fight is reversals, and the way that it was explained to me is that when you film a fight scene, there are two kinds of ways that you can approach it. So a reversal fight scene is where you're unsure who is the stronger fighter. So
Yeah.
it's like one of them, it's a constant back and forth as who's in control, who's winning. And then the other is one is
Which is-
clearly more powerful, and it's kind of a scrap.
I mean,
more like the
it-
Spider-Man vulture fight
It
scene.
starts out almost like
As opposed to like duel.
almost like with
Yeah.
Jack teaching Will, where he's like, "Oh, you're pretty good, but how's your footwork?"
Well, yeah, what's compelling to me about that is he does that kind of mentoring thing,
Yeah.
and then tries to escape, and then it's only then that he actually... So that feels like a threat initially, right? When he's like, how's your footwork? And you're like, this is kind of fun, but he's kind of trying to get this kid to think too much, and he's going to get him off balance.
Yeah.
It's only when he tries to escape and then comes back that he goes, listen, you're in my way, and now I have to do something
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
And it's that smart reversal of the first thing that you thought was a threat wasn't, and the second thing that you don't recognize as a threat is the actual threat. And it gives the fight this nice momentum where you go, oh, now it's real, and shit's gonna get crazy.
Other thing about that is then when that moment comes along, Will pulls out this like red hot.
It's a sword blank.
I think it's a poker.
It's a sword blank.
It's a sword blank, but
Or is it a-
yeah, no, but
Fine.
It's definitely a sword
yeah.
blank.
So you go from the shot
But
where sorry,
he pulls that out, and the donkey starts moving again.
Mm-hmm.
Because of so earlier in the previous bit, when he's getting his shackles off, Jack uses like a red hot something or other to get the donkey to start moving.
Yeah.
And it sees that and it goes, "Oh,
Right, time to get moving." That's actually really smart. That's really good seating for like a small payoff. And what I like too is that Jack comes back into the room and he threatens Will properly. And then, so the power dynamic shifted because you're like, oh, this guy's a pirate. He might just like kill this dude. We don't know what the tone of the film is yet. And then almost instantly, Will picks up the fire poker and you go, oh,
It's
the
a
table.
sword blank.
It doesn't matter.
Yes, it does.
oh my
piece of
god,
metal.
it's a hot fucking like
The hot stick, you
It's a
pedantic
sword blank.
stick
prick.
of metal. It doesn't matter."
He picks up the hot one and Captain Jack has the cold one, so it's not as good.
Alright.
Is that you happy with that?
It's the red lightsaber.
He picks up the red lightsaber, and suddenly the power dynamics change again, where Jack's like, "Oh, now I'm on the back foot."
Yeah, but then he
Yeah.
loses it, and then he picks up another sword
Yeah,
and
it's-
another sword.
and then
It's
there's just
really
a lot of
smart
swords.
because it's this constant reversal where, because of the way that they move the set around and they move the characters around the spaces, you're never actually sure who is in control until they're so they go through all that fight sequence, and then Will, I think,
He's constantly losing swords as well.
well, yeah, he's not. Jack is really good at disarming him because Will is not. He's not a better fighter than Jack is.
But it's okay. He's got plenty of swords.
But because he works there, so he knows where they are, and he's got control of the environment,
right.
which is turned on him at the last minute, which is like another reversal when he's up in the rafters and they come down. The flower kind of gets thrown in his face. But to
Is
me,
that
what's
flower? I'm not sure what that is.
whatever that is,
We're being very pedantic about the
I assumed
details
it
in
was
this film.
sawdust because
It's like
it's a
sand,
black dust.
yeah.
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 But I like this idea of even the small instances in the fight scene are used to reverse the power, like in kind of subtle ways that make you cognizant of the fact that this is kind of a crazy thing that's happening.
And the other thing that I find interesting about that fight scene is that Will ends up looking very stupid because he's covered in this orange shit and he's holding a sword and
Mhm.
then like his master comes along and defeats the pirate.
With just like a bottle
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the back of his head.
And then
yeah.
he's
Just
standing
do my
there with
civil
like
duty.
with like orange shit on his face and they're like, "Well done" to his master.
Exactly. I mean, the whole scene is just irony. Like, it's just irony, where it's like, Jack, I think he falls over onto a seesaw and launches Will into the rafters.
Yeah.
And then the irony of that is that then Will cuts a barrel down and it drops down. That's what I want to talk about from a production perspective, which is that this scene is, like, super convenient. Like, it's so convenient, everything that happens.
Yeah.
Like, there happens to be a crate above the seesaw.
Or
and it
there
drops
happens
down.
to be a sword
Yeah.
blank in the furnace. Yeah.
And what's kind of cool about the way that they do it is that it's covered up really interestingly by having like both characters always sort of off balance, or they fall over at weird points, or they move in the space in strange ways.
yeah.
And that movement covers up the fact that like you don't stop to be like, isn't that really awfully convenient that there was a crate directly above the seesaw and that there was a bag of sawdust right in the place where Jack jumped down.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that Will, like,
there are
all of those things.
there even are like some inconsistencies between cuts.
Mhm.
Where like a character will just kind of be somewhere else. But you don't notice it because the background is always so messy that it's like there's no consistency of like the 180 or like the left side roll or the 180 roll in this fight scene, but it's not necessary.
I mean, it's always close enough and you can still kind of follow what's going on.
Yeah, I think another thing is that they use the reverse, like the fight scene in itself it's not used in the same way as like, let's say, like the Atomic Blonde fight scene, where
Yeah.
like that was purely like one character versus just odds, just like bad boys. Whereas because in this fight scene we have two main characters, and this will probably come up in other fight scenes we do, they can't just play the game of throwing away people.
Yeah.
Like Jack or Will can't die.
Yeah, because it's
So the
a
stakes are sort of a bit higher.
But to keep the fight scene actually interesting, because if you just have two people fighting and like nothing happening, then you get bad fight scenes that are really boring and like don't actually do anything.
I think what helps is that, I mean, there's a bit of... Jack has like a different goal than just murder Will. He doesn't want to murder him. He just wants to get out. I mean, Will obviously just wants to kill Jack.
Will is kind of, yeah. Well, even then, like once they start fighting, it doesn't even become about killing them. Like they end, like when they're talking, they're not talking about like, I'm gonna kill you. It's like, not if I kill you first. It's just like, who made all these swords? It's like, I did. It's like, why? And it's like, because I want, like, they start talking about like the most mundane shit while...
it's the scene in the Western film where like the cowboy rolls up to a campfire and the guy pulls out a gun and he's like, "What are you doing?" And they like exchange information and then they like from that form their friendship and they go and do the film.
Yeah.
Like it's that initial interaction that is normally conflict driven because that's how you make interesting scenes. But the smart thing that they did is like literally put a physical conflict in the middle of the conversational conflict of, well, you're a pirate, yeah, but you're a sissy sword nerd boy, and like that dynamic is so well framed within a fight scene. I think that's why like a lot of films start like that, where it's like, you know, in a Fast and Furious film, Dwayne Johnson will fight someone and then they'll become friends because it's a nice vehicle.
Well, I mean, they're not even friends at the end of the
vehicle,
scene.
get it, got him. Right.
Got him. It's a Fast and Furious joke. Thank you, Ben, for noticing my little joke.
Yeah, they're not even friends at the end of that fight, though.
No, but they've interacted enough that when Will goes to help him...
But when I think about it, it sets up pretty much all of the important stuff. Well, the stuff that's going to be important later. It's like, Jack threatened Elizabeth. Will doesn't like pirates. Will is kind of into Elizabeth.
Yep.
Jack has that gun which he doesn't want to use.
Yep.
They're both good at swords.
Yeah, it's a lot of seeding of elements in a very like brief... It's like 4 minutes, that scene, and it sets up a lot of stuff. Scenes that are interesting and effective and memorable are multi-purpose. They do like 5 or 6 things at once for the story and the plot and the narrative and the characters without it feeling like you're trying to do 5 things at once.
Yeah.
And a good example is like the difference between like the film Lord of the Rings and the book Lord of the Rings, where the film Lord of the Rings is so multi-purpose with everything. Because characters will be talking and you'll learn about their backstory and where they're from and who they are. Whereas in the book, you meet someone new and there's like a chapter about where they've come from. That's the opposite of multi-purpose. Whereas I feel like this does a good job of being like, Captain Jack Sparrow is incredibly dangerous, but also kind of an insane person.
Well, the scene actually sets up a lot of character development between Will and Elizabeth, even though they're not even in the same scene, because it sort of creates this proxy character or this proxy development through Jack, because he's like, again, he's not the main character.
He's a
more
vehicle
of just
for their...
So when you have like the early sort of development you get between Elizabeth and Will is just all you get is Will likes Elizabeth. Elizabeth is kind of oblivious to it, but like not really. You know, it's like that's all you get. Like that's pretty much the development you get early on.
Well, the two things you know is that and she likes pirates and he hates pirates. That's where they start. And they end the opposite
do they establish
direction.
that she likes pirates?
Yeah, when she's on the ship, when she's young, and the opening scene.
Yeah, that.
She's
She's like singing a pirate.
Yeah, I forgot that
she
exists.
finds
The song from the ride.
Yeah.
Because their arcs are like...
From the ride, yeah.
Their arcs are diametrically opposed, where he starts off hating them, she starts off liking them, and they go the opposite directions.
Yeah.
By the end, she hates pirates. And
Well, she doesn't exactly hate pirates because she's in love with Will and he's a pirate at the end.
From a structural perspective, that's what they did. I know she doesn't hate pirates, but like they inverse the arcs.
So like that's
really
really all you get in terms of like between Elizabeth and Will. But because for the first long half hour to like 40 minutes of the film, they haven't really interacted. But when they do, it doesn't feel, even though it is like their first time meeting and like what is essentially, you know, quite a few long minutes. It doesn't feel like it from a character's perspective, because this whole time you've had this Jack boy who's just been like interacting with both of them quite consistently throughout the film
and chewing so much scenery that you don't notice.
Yeah. And like this is like, because this is the first time you meet Jack and Will together. But the first time they meet, it sets up, you know, compared to the first time when Elizabeth and Jack meet. Mm-hmm. Which is of this like weird, like this odd sort of interaction.
Mind you,
they like
with like the relationship between Will and Elizabeth, it doesn't really have a lot of setup, just because it's like, they already set that up with, they've known each other since they were kids. Now she's like the governor's daughter, so she's a bit too high rank for him, but she's always like really familiar with him.
It's just that meme, like it's the
Well, they use the societal patterns to like execute on the concept of. They use the societal patterns to execute on the concept of like, we need like shorthand for where these characters are, and you know a lot of people criticize that in screenwriting or writing, where they're like, You've been very lazy. You've used shorthand. It's like, no, otherwise you'd have to like explain
yeah.
how
It is,
society
it is tropey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like you have
it's
to.
tropey,
It's the
but,
farm
like,
boy trope,
it-
right? Yeah.
It's the Superman.
It
trope.
lets them get on with all the other stuff that they want to do in the film without having to focus on them falling in love in the first place.
Superman is Superman, though. Like, he's not Superman.
No, I mean the Clark Kent Lois Lane thing. She's like a uptown reporter, and he's the farm boy.
Yeah, okay.
It was a
Anyway.
big thing in the comics. It's not
Sure.
important. Scratch it. Make that a bleep so they don't know what we're talking about. Just like, don't know what David meant there, but I'm sure it was a valid intellectual.
Right, yeah. But
Instead
yeah,
of
I
a
think
dumb, obscure
so like
reference.
Elizabeth and Jack's introduction is like it's like, oh, you saved me, but even though you're a bad boy, it's like weird that thing.
Yeah, opposed to when
opposed
Will helps her.
Yeah, and
TV.
and then as opposed to when Jack and Will meet, where it's like you get Jack being sort of the villain, I guess, of the scene, and Will being
The good guy.
the good boy.
But at that point, you're also following Jack, so you kind of don't want Will to win. So it's an interesting dichotomy of like, and you know, I think the first film really wanted to be about this, but it never quite pulled it off, which is like, Jack is a pirate, but he's not the worst pirate. Like, Barbossa in this film is the worst pirate.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
he's the Blackbeard.
Yeah, he's the bad bloke. Well, and
Yeah.
ironically, there is a Blackbeard in this universe, which is never talked about until fucking.
Well, yeah,
Full
no,
of
they
its
do.
own.
Yeah, they do
It's
mention
fine,
him.
it's
They
fine,
just keep
fine.
bringing in new.
Yeah, it's not like they
Yeah.
improvised all of these films or anything.
No.
Don't worry about it. But yeah, it's interesting to me then when you think about like, so a conversation that I had with Aaron the other night when we were drinking.
Shout outs to
Shout out to
Aaron.
Aaron. You can follow him on Twitter if you want. But
At Literal Citrus.
that's your
Okay.
Twitter handle. You've goofed on it.
No, it's Aaron. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so Aaron and I were having a conversation the other night. Why am I still getting fucking text? There was a conversation the other night that Aaron and I had, cutting all that out. That's just going to be the first cut, and I got it right the first time.
All right, cool.
Is that the Pirates movies are really bad because when they made the first film, they made one film, and it was really good.
I fucking love the first.
So
Yeah.
the problem is, and this is like a product of not just Hollywood, but like of writers in general, where if you execute extremely well on a premise, which is in a certain genre, it's really hard to pivot that premise into something else. So I always talk about Harry Potter because Harry Potter is incredibly bad at going from being a fairy tale genre, which it is in book 1 and 2, into being a mystery kind of coming of age story, which it is in book 3. And the mechanic they use is the magic, where the magic becomes like a sort of a Rowling introduces rules for the magic that don't make sense, and then she keeps retroactively fixing them. These films do the same thing with the magic, where in the first film, you don't know if the Black Pearl is actually magical, but you kind of think maybe it is. And that's
Yeah.
an exciting premise, because you're like, the ambiguity is what makes that kind
yeah,
of
it's like it's
interesting.
pirates
Yeah.
because pirates are
Yeah,
mysterious,
and you're
and with like
there's a mystique, like, you know...
we
it's
don't
got
even
the-
know if pirates as a whole as a general thing they're very different. You know, they're kind of lumped in with like ninjas or like this mythical cultural thing, but it's like we know ninjas probably didn't exist, but it's like pirates.
I mean, pirates existed. They were
Yes.
they weren't
Yeah.
rock stars. They were just horrible.
No.
people.
but it's
Ninjas don't exist.
Well,
I'm gonna go ahead and say that.
There were people that murdered a lot of people in those spaces, but they weren't ninjas.
No,
But
but pirates though.
pirates definitely existed. Like, there's historical record of people doing that. And I
But
played
like they
Assassin's
weren't
Creed 4,
very good
so-
people. That's
Yeah,
thing.
well, they were bad
Yeah.
blokes, and
Because like
that's a
even
fun area.
even like pirate myth, like people like Blackbeard,
Mhm.
quote unquote existed, but there's still myth surrounding
They
them.
were well, Blackbeard was especially interesting because he built his own myth. Like, the things he did was like he was a theatrical person. Like, he would put these wicks on his under his hat, and he would set them alight when he boarded ships, and he would become this kind of demon creature on these vessels because no one had seen a fucking candle before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the thing I love about the concept of these of the first film is like there's like an element of unexplained mysticism. And then in the later films, they keep trying to explain it and doing
Oh,
a shitty job.
There's
You
more
wouldn't
and
like the
more and
fifth
more
film.
mysticism in
It
the
gets
later
worse,
films. I mean,
yeah.
they don't always explain all of it.
Yeah, but it
The
gets
third
worse.
film is kind of a kind of a mess. It's
That's
But-
because they didn't understand why the first film worked. It wasn't because of the magic. It was because of the structure and the tone and the witticisms and the way that it was written
Yeah.
was so compelling, and that element of mystique.
mind you, I
but
still enjoy the third film.
They constantly try and explain it. You can enjoy
I
this.
really enjoy the third film, mostly for the ridiculous dialogue. That's
there's great
all the way
elements
through
about
it.
all of them. But as far as like a whole package, I think they picked the wrong thing to double down on. And that speaks to the level of like if you take this scene in isolation and you showed it to someone that had never seen them before,
You wouldn't think there's like magic. You think it's just a pirate film.
and they would comment on like, oh wow, it's like the way that the dialogue is written is very it's witty, it's bouncy.
Man, the fighting's really realistic in this film.
Hey, from a sword fighting perspective, is it good?
Just the scene is actually not bad.
Okay,
I mean,
because I can never tell.
I mean, there's some.
I think the most impressive part of it is actually the footwork.
Yeah,
the sword
footwork.
fighting is like it's classic movie sword fighting
Yeah,
where
where
they're not
it's
actually
they
hitting.
just kind of touch.
But the footwork's
the
not bad.
blades together, and it's like,
especially
oh,
like-
you stopped my sword. It's like,
I especially like when they're actually on the when they're on the rafters.
and they're jumping.
Yeah, there's
back.
some
and
really
they're sort
good
of and they're
footwork
there's
there.
this one shot where it's their feet and they're sort of like I was like, yeah, it's actually
they're
kind of
like
like it's kind
jumping
of nice.
between the rafters. There, it's pretty good actually.
Yeah, the footwork is good. The sword fighting is wild.
Yeah, but that's film sword fighting. It's hard to make it. Look
Will
real.
holds he holds a sword incorrectly, and that always catches me.
Mhm.
The sword he picks up is it's like a military saber, and he holds it like it's a small sword. It's like nah.
Well, to
don't
be
do
fair,
that well.
if you were on the fly trying to save your life, you might just go to what you're best at. So
yeah, which is fair enough.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I even
And
that.
then he uses it like a saber, so it's
Yeah.
like
But you could read
make
that,
your mind.
you could read that text as like part of his character development. I know it's not.
You can read it as he trains in small sword, and he happened to pick up a
Yeah,
saber.
which is like, if that's how you want to read the text, that's fine. Because I like this film, I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. But the other films, for me personally, for my opinion, IMO.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's an acronym. For
Yeah,
Yeah.
in my
yeah, we
humble
know.
Opinion.
We
Okay.
know.
I learned that one recently.
Okay.
Is that yeah, like I some of the elements in those films don't quite make up for the bad stuff they do. But in this film, I think when you take something in isolation and you pick it, you get up close with it. Man, they did some really like not just for like a pirate film, but for films in general, they did some really impressive stuff that I, kind of we haven't really seen since like early Marvel days. I don't think like since in AAA kind of big Disney or like in general, like it's
what
hard
in
to do
terms
a lot.
of like
Well, it's in terms of like technical
character fights?
Yeah, like technical screenwriting. I think it's incredibly poised by using those vehicles of the character fights and stuff. Even like Civil War, as much as I love Civil War, they probably could have done more with the fighting between the heroes as far as characters.
Well, yeah, this fight scene is better than the I don't know what the title fight scene of Civil
I
War.
mean, it's
the
better
airport.
than a lot of
Yeah.
fight scenes. I just watched Jupiter Ascending
Oh god.
the other week, and the thing that got me the most about it was how boring the fight scenes were
Mhm.
because they did nothing for story or character.
Yep,
I watched this one twice and was engaged both times. So that's
that's saying a lot.
that is saying a lot.
And it's like when you combine like the good script with the great vehicle for conflict and meeting and getting
very
to the protagonist.
musical as well. This
I was
fight
gonna
scene.
say, and then like you combine that as well with like the way that they use the music and the rhythms and the
rhythm,
stop
yeah.
points and the swords
Yeah.
and the foley and like
Very
the
fun.
way that when he throws the sawdust or whatever it is, there's like that kind of
I mean, these
there's a huge
films
whoosh
Yeah.
sound
is
and-
where I first gained a love for movie soundtracks.
I mean, it's brilliant.
Hans Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer fucking nailed this one.
Yeah.
And
He
he should have
did.
done literally nothing else after this. Everything he's done after this has been almost exclusively garbage. But
Some of it's been alright.
it's been fine. But I
It's
think
not as
He does a lot
notable.
of like the same stuff.
Yeah.
but-
I think because he does so much, a lot
So that's
of it is-
iconic now.
Yeah, exactly. But like, yeah, if you play someone the Pirates theme, they're like, that's Pirates
That's
of the
Pirates of
Caribbean.
the Caribbean, yeah.
And it's like playing someone the Halo 3 fucking loading screen
Oh,
music. They just
Oh,
they start
man.
crying.
Yeah,
like,
dude.
like you've done something to
Oh,
them.
boy.
Yeah.
It has weight because this film like why did the screen turn?
It's very hard. Let's.
Okay. Yeah, like it has weight for the right reasons, and I think that instead of what a lot of films try to do now, which is like affect a level of guys, this is important because there's a lot of stuff happening and it's expensive and there's explosions and there's buildings falling down. It's
Star Wars
important.
Episode 3.
It's important, guys. Instead of what this film did, which was like, let's make a scene feel important by injecting it with a bunch of different purposes that add to the film and make it interesting, and then let's film it in a way that's interesting, and let's make these people do interesting things on the screen that progress the plot,
Star
the film,
Wars
and the style.
Episode
I think we need
1 and
more
parts
movies
of it.
like this.
Yeah, we need more fucking
Duel
films
of
like this,
Fates.
and it's a goddamn shame that the other pirates aren't this good. And I know it's
Yeah.
hard because
Yeah.
you set a really high bar.
It's a franchise film.
But,
It's-
man,
woo,
This one's
downhill.
so good, and it's unfortunate that for whatever reason, the mechanism of Hollywood at that time, I know it's different now, didn't allow sequels to be as good as they could have been.
Yeah.
And especially given how much of a surprise sleeper hit this was, because basically Disney didn't want to make it.
Oh, they were like, no, it's a fucking theme park. What are you talking?
They were
Theme
like,
park.
No,
guy.
that's
What are
a
you talking
terrible
about?
idea.
They're like, no. Trust us.
They were like, people don't like pirate
Literally
films. What
up
are
to
you
the
doing?
point, like even when it, up to the point where it came out, Disney was like, you guys are fucking idiots. And then like I think the first screening, they were like, it's okay. And then it just
went off.
smashed box office.
Yeah.
And Disney was like, yeah, whatever, fine.
Fine.
And they're like,
got
okay, I
us.
guess this is a franchise
Let's
now.
make
Well, yeah, that
25.
was the thing. At that point, they were like, okay, you made a good film, but make it again. And they were like,
Do
what?
it again. And they were like, no, it was
What?
just the
No,
it was just the
it was
one.
just good. Like,
Yeah.
no.
We didn't plan
You're
for
out,
sequels,
bitch.
guys.
Yeah, guys, it was a one.
But we Disney. You out,
So
bitch.
then they had to like break Will and Elizabeth up again and like do all this.
Be like,
other stuff.
hard work, yeah.
just go to different parts of the world. We'll get you back together. And go back. Film 5 will replace you.
Exactly.
Film 6, we don't know what's gonna happen.
Fucking who
No,
knows?
they weren't in film 4 either. Actually,
Oh, okay.
film 4 was
It
bad.
was a standalone, which was why it was bad.
That was
Film 4
that
was
was when it
awful.
was Jack was the main character. Like
He
through and
had this
through.
love interest who was.
Oh
also
yeah.
Jack.
Yeah. Let's not talk
For a
about the
bit.
fourth film
I don't think
anymore.
I don't think
Yeah.
we should dwell on the others.
No,
but
That was bad.
I feel like if there's anything to learn from this, it's that when you're trying to execute a physical fight scene, even if it's like
It doesn't even have to. It doesn't have to be flashy. It can just
yeah,
be.
it can, but if it has purpose and it has
Yeah.
multiple things happening, then it can be really interesting. And even
This
if you're
is
talking,
this is like the best example of a of like fight scene as dialogue,
I would have argued dialogue as fight scene.
or like fight scene as a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Which
Yeah.
is like, you know, and a lot of films try and do that, but it ends up being like talking heads where they
It's a
they
yeah.
hit and then they stop and they go, What are you bloody doing? And then someone else swings us and they go, You're bloody
They kind of do that a bit in this film, but it's not constant. It's
And
just
but
there's
it-
just a little bit of it.
But it suits the tone because that's how Jack is and that's how Will is. Like it
Yeah.
makes sense in this world.
They both just happen to be very quippy boys.
Yeah, whereas like in episode 3 when General Grievous and
Oh, fuck,
Obi-Wan are
let's-
fighting and they just sort of stop to
Yeah,
quip
let's
at each
just
other.
let's just not.
So yeah, don't do that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that's your big takeaways. Like when you're writing a fight scene or looking at them, just appreciate that like the more dynamic and multi-purpose you can make it, the better it is. And that's true for any scene you write, I think.
And
Yeah,
it-
a fight
yeah.
scene that is just fighting bad guys can get really boring.
Well,
really quickly.
it shows you what a huge difference having one main character fighting nameless people versus having like
Yeah.
two main characters fighting each other, and like how different it has to be.
And why I think that like why it's important to use them both in the right context.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
a lot of films do the
yeah,
wrong
and like
thing.
because this is a build up rather than a payoff. Like all of the like
it seeds the whole film.
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of what
as opposed to being like the climax that it was in Atomic
like an
Blonde.
Atomic Blonde where it's like it's like, oh my god, it's finally
It's the
happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good place to end. Ben, do you have any recommendations for this week?
Oh man, I've been playing table tennis in VR and it's the fucking shit.
Yeah.
Oh man, like I got sick of like shooty games. I was like, nah, I'm done with firing bows and guns.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what's good that isn't shooting? And people were like, buy this $10 table tennis simulator. And I was like, all right. And man, it's just a good time.
When did we become middle-aged people? That sounds amazing.
It's so
I would
comfy,
love to
dude.
play table tennis in VR with you.
Oh man, it works really well with VR as well because it in terms of like holding a paddle, it's quite a good analog, and in terms of the like ping pong balls are weigh nothing, so you don't
Yeah.
have to feel it to feel it.
Now I'm just thinking that we should play ping pong in real
I just
life.
want to play ping pong.
Ping pong's
Yeah,
really
ping pong's
extremely
really
good.
fun. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
used
it's
to
a
be
fun
really
game.
good at it.
Yeah.
Laura, do you have any recommendations? Anything you've been watching, reading, or listening to?
Basically, all I've read this week was your book, David.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
So now, yeah,
that's a good.
So now
It's a
finishing
good one.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I didn't read my book this week.
No.
I didn't do the work I was supposed to do, and
Oh.
Aaron is mad.
Well,
I don't think I have anything to recommend because my week is. Oh no, I've just started watching Fargo, on Netflix,
Oh, yeah.
and it's incredible.
Mm.
If you fucking haven't, I'm talking directly to you two,
oh, okay.
not just the audience.
I've
you
not
at
even
home
touched
sitting
it.
in your
I've
bedroom
heard that it's amazing.
or in your
but-
kitchen making dinner or in your car.
Isn't
or
it a
whatever you
film?
listen to this. No, it's a TV series. 3 seasons.
Isn't it a film by Batman Boy?
That is also a film, but the TV show is different.
So yes,
is it
it
based
is also
on the
a
film,
film.
or is it a?
Is it related?
Vaguely.
So it is like
uses-
the same.
It uses
thing?
the premise, but it's very different.
So it is Fargo, as in Ben Still. No, not
Ben
Ben Still.
Affleck.
Ben Affleck. Fargo.
Yeah, I think so.
Because he directed.
Yeah.
That always confused me.
But it's not.
continue.
It's very different, and the TV show is extremely good.
All right.
It's got a whole bunch of really, really good actors in it, and the first episode is such a wild premise that the minute you start watching it, you're like, oh, and then when you remember it's all real, like it actually happened, you go,
Yeah.
oh, this is wild.
It's the only thing I know about Fargo is it's based on a real story.
Super, super worth watching.
Okay.
Like actually fascinating, and the way it's
We'll get
filmed.
to that
and
once
style.
we're done with a Doctor Who.
Yeah,
Up to
because we're still
season
getting
7. Just starting season
Oh
7.
boy, I'm sorry.
I know, I know.
I have no idea. I've just
You've gone through all of the good episodes of. There's like 4 or 5 good episodes in season 6, like the God Complex, which is incredible.
Yeah, we had.
And you're into.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
Season
into the-
7 is.
You're
Oh,
into
no,
You're into
I've-
the season where Moffat had 3 ideas and he kept doing them.
Yeah.
And those 3 ideas are Weeping Angels, A Library of Dead People, and an episode that isn't about the Doctor. And none
Good.
of them are good.
All right.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right.
But as always, it's that time of week, Ben. Where can people find us?
YouTube,
YouTube.com/DCMworks.
Facebook,
Facebook.com. We're at DC. I just listed the URL of Facebook. We're at DCMworks Social on Facebook.
Twitter,
At DCM_works.
Patreon.
Patreon.com/DCMworks. And I always do this, but I feel like it's important because this week we've got a behind the scenes going up. We had one go up last week as well of how I make video essays, which, you know, if you're into that.
Also important because YouTube is demonetizing us.
Yeah, this is also important. So if you're watching this on YouTube, basically, we get a lot of views, but because we're not over 1,000 subscribers, they've demonetized literally all of my channels. So
that's good.
So the money that I was making, the tail end revenue that was paying for the servers that we use for our podcast,
It's just gone.
it's just gone. So,
Thanks, YouTube.
so if you're listening on the podcast platform like iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you get your
Chuck
podcast,
us a sub, please.
I now have
Yeah.
to pay out of, and I'm not saying you have to, but like now this is no longer like it's not just paying for
This
itself.
isn't funny anymore.
Yeah, it's like, they were like, oh, we're just gonna cut your legs out from under you because we were making a decent amount off YouTube. Like,
It paid for our
it
service.
was paying for the service for the podcast and the
But now it's
website,
not.
and now it doesn't. So if you do wanna get exclusive content, I do recommend you subscribe to our Patreon. Our lowest tier is $3, and
Or
you get
just
pretty
subscribe
much.
to us on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if we-
well, actually, we need. Yeah, if
Yeah,
you're
we need
listening-
YouTube subscribers.
Yeah.
If we hit
you're
that,
listening-
if we hit the sub goal, we're fine.
then I'm fine. But you know,
we have the hours. The hours are fine. We just gotta
It's
hit
just the goal,
just
yeah.
gotta hit the sub goal.
so yeah, that would help. And then tell your nan to subscribe. 'cause
Yeah.
she's probably not using YouTube, so she won't mind. But yeah,
We're
you know,
begging for subscribers. How
Oh my
how
God.
classy is this?
Well,
How
I mean-
low have we sunk?
I mean,
Yeah.
you were kind of begging. I was trying to keep it a bit
Oh,
above
well.
brow, but it's too late now.
No.
No, the only thing I was going to say is if you do subscribe to the Patreon for for more than $3 a month, you get access to pretty much all of the Patreon exclusive content.
All of the stuff.
The other awards are just like additional things that are sort of more personal stuff. But yeah, for $3 a month, you know what we always say is like if you drop $3 out of your pocket and you didn't notice, that's how much you should give because any
Unless
more
you're in
than that-
Australia, in which case there would be coins. You'd
and
probably
you hear
notice.
them, yeah.
You'd hear
But like
if you're in
yeah,
the States, it's like whew,
yeah, it's
just
blown away in the
flutters
wind.
off, yeah.
And you get access to Interface, the current sort of audiobook
Woo.
podcast series that we're running. Episode 6 goes up next week. I'm
Ooh.
so close to finishing it, and it gets even weirder.
It gets worse every time.
There's a backlog of about 20 Patreon-only podcasts. We've got started doing the behind the scenes of the video essays. There's all kinds of updates. You can vote on topics for this podcast.
For the year,
For the year, for the... And
whatever that means.
I'm putting up the themes sometime next month for each month of the year, so you can then start to vote on things for those themes. And yeah, I feel like that. I didn't really have a segue to
No.
the end of the show. I'm at DC on my hip pie.
I'm at Little Citrus.
I'm at Laura Ducky B.
And we'll see you guys next week. Nailed it.
Catch ya.